Hello everyone, welcome to MNB World's News Mongolia, where we bring you the latest stories and updates from across the nation and beyond. I'm Batsir Namshar. Our top stories for News Mongolia. The 78th session of the UN General Assembly has started. President U.Khurelsukh meets UNCCD Executive Secretary Ibrahim Thiaw. The MC successfully participated in the Cultural Heritage Days. For the news, stay tuned. World leaders gathered at the United Nations in New York for the 78th session of the General Assembly. The general debate kicked off earlier on Tuesday, focusing on the urgent need to rebuild trust and solidarity in these challenging times. The President of Mongolia, U.Khurelsukh, was warmly welcomed by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres as he joined more than 100 heads of state from around the world. This year's theme, Rebuilding Trust and Advancing the Global Unity, underscores the importance of collective action to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and ensure peace, prosperity and progress for all.
The 78th session of the UN General Assembly has commenced. The general debate of this session, held at the UN headquarters in New York on Tuesday, is centered around the theme of restoring global trust and solidarity during these challenging times. Upon his arrival at the UN headquarters, President of Mongolia, U.Khurelsukh, received an official welcome from UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. President U.Khurelsukh then took part in the opening of the general debate for the 78th session, which was presided over by Denis Francis, the President of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly. The theme of this debate is rebuilding trust and reigniting global solidarity, accelerating action on the 2030 Agenda and its sustainable development goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. During this general debate, with the participation of the heads of state from more than 100 countries worldwide, President U.Khurelsukh will deliver a message and express Mongolia's stance on international relations issues. Additionally, he is scheduled to hold meetings with the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and heads of state and government from various countries. The overarching theme of the 78th session of general debate is rebuilding trust and advancing global unity, intensifying the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Sustainable Development Goals for Peace, Prosperity and Progress for All. In the context of this theme, there will be discussions and high-level meetings on topics such as Sustainable Development Goals, advancing climate change commitment, financing for development, universal health coverage, pandemic prevention, preparedness and response, tuberculosis, and the future. A high-level meeting and preparatory session will also be held in observance of the International Day for the Total Abolition of Nuclear Weapons. Khurut Batar, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Economy and Development of Mongolia, will participate in a high-level meeting on sustainable development goals and high-level discussion on development financing. Government representatives led by Minister of Foreign Affairs Batsir will take part in the main activities of the conference.
Due to the pandemic and geopolitical conflicts, it has become more difficult to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Also, Secretary-General Mr. Guterres said the year 2040, not 2030. The proposal that it's important to look at the financing of development cooperation until 2040 in a more modern and pragmatic way has attracted a lot of attention.
Mongolia's accession to the United Nations in 1961 was a testament to the universal recognition of the country as an independent and peace-loving nation. It marked the beginning of a new phase in the country's foreign policy development, providing an opportunity for Mongolia to establish itself as an independent player on the global stage and expand its international cooperation efforts. Since then, Mongolia has actively participated in the activities of the United Nations and its affiliated organizations, contributing to the achievement of the international community's goals and objectives, ensuring the country's security, strengthening its position in the international arena, advancing social and economic development, democracy, and human rights, with a focus on providing proof of its commitment.
As the United Nations General Assembly convenes in New York, it serves a backdrop for important international interactions. Amidst this diplomatic gathering, let's turn our attention to the current affairs unfolding on the sidelines of the General Assembly, where notable meetings and discussions are shaping global relations.
President U.Khurelsukh of Mongolia, attending the 78th United Nations General Assembly, met with Ibrahim Thiaw, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Acknowledging the certification's regional impact, President U.Khurelsukh thanked international support for Mongolia's decision to host the 17th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification in 2026. This choice was attributed to Mongolia's dedication to combat desertification and its leadership in this field, recognized during the 15th Conference of the Parties last year. Their discussions covered scientific approaches to combat desertification, including forest strips, soil fertility enhancement, afforestation and environmental rehabilitation's role in countering climate change, desertification, dust storms, and soil degradation were emphasized. Ibrahim Thiaw assured support for the 17th Conference in Ulaanbaatar and highlighted the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification's broader mission, encompassing land and water degradation prevention, pasture protection, as well as pastoral preservation. In a notable announcement, Ibrahim Thiaw plans to visit Mongolia in 2024, further cementing cooperation in tackling desertification. This meeting underscores their joint commitment to addressing desertification issues, emphasizing global environmental health and sustainability. Again, on the sidelines of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Mongolia's Foreign Minister Batsitsik engaged a productive meeting with Estonia's Foreign Affairs Minister Margus Tsahkna on September 19, 2023. The meeting provided an opportunity for the two foreign ministers to review the existing state of relations and cooperation between Mongolia and Estonia. They also exchanged views on avenues for further advancing mutually beneficial collaboration, with a particular focus on information technology and digital governance. Both sides deliberated on the prospect of establishing an intergovernmental commission, a move aimed at elevating the frequency and depth of official dialogues between the two nations. This initiative reflects the shared commitment towards fostering closer ties and enhancing cooperation in various domains.
The Mongolian Embassy in France organized an open-door event for the second consecutive year on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the European Heritage Days in France. During this event, the public was introduced to Mongolia's history, culture, heritage, and national characteristics.
The introduction of visa-free travel for citizens of France and the European Union as part of the year of visiting Mongolia was also discussed during the open day. Additionally, the exhibition Chinggis Khan, How Mongols Changed the World, which will open in Nantes in October under the patronage of the presidents of Mongolia and France, was presented. The guests were given an introduction into exhibition and to the cultural ambassador of Mongolia, the Moronkhor Ensemble. Through this activity, we provided visitors with a wealth of information about Mongolia, the cooperation between Mongolia and France, the tangible and intangible cultural heritage of Mongolia listed with UNESCO, and travel options to Mongolia in connection with the year of visiting Mongolia were introduced. Information and viewpoints about cultural ties and collaborative initiatives between the two nations were shared as well as on this Open Door Day.
I'm honored to take part in the Mongolian Embassy's Open Door Day in our city. Here we can see a number of fascinating images, as well as some of the rich cultural legacy of the Mongolian people. The Embassy of Mongolia and the city of Ulaanbaatar are closely related. Mongolian throat singing mixed with contemporary beatbox, which incorporates the tsor musical instrument, garnered a lot of interest from the French audience. We are currently touring through 8 nations across Europe.
8-осоор тоглолт явж байгаа.
The event covered a variety of subjects, including UNESCO-recognized cultural and natural heritage, paintings depicting Mongolian nature, traditional dress, cuisine, and Mongolian calligraphy. Additionally, the best modern Mongolian poetry and literature were made available to French-speaking readers through Burial Wally Publishing Company and translator Mukhzol, who ensured the works are accessible to interested readers.
Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Now let's take a look at international news from our partner agencies. King Charles III of the United Kingdom started a 3-day state visit to France on Wednesday, meant to highlight the friendship between the two nations with great pomp after the trip was postponed in March amid widespread demonstrations against President Emmanuel Macron's pension changes.
The king and his wife, Queen Camilla, were greeted by French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne in a windy Paris before heading to a ceremony at the Arc de Triomphe, where they paid tribute to French and British soldiers who died in 2 world wars. They then drove down the Champs-Élysées Avenue in French Diaz car, waving at the thin crowds that had gathered along the tree-lined boulevard. The visit comes as French and British citizens feel the pinch of inflation at multi-decade highs, and a planned dinner at the sumptuous Palace of Versailles, a symbol of privilege, has been criticized by some as insensitive. Before the dinner at Versailles, the two men held a meeting in Macron's office at the Élysée Palace. Though Charles only has an advisory role in British politics, the topics the pair would discuss include the war in Ukraine, the coup in Sahel, as well as climate change, according to French officials. More than 150 guests have been invited to the banquet, including British actor Hugh Grant, rock star Mick Jagger, former Arsenal football coach Arsène Wenger, French soccer star Didier Drogba, as well as French billionaire Bernard Arnault. On Thursday, Charles, Camilla, Macron, and his wife Brigitte will visit the Notre Dame Cathedral to view restoration works following a massive blaze in 2019 that destroyed its roof. Charles and Camilla will then head to the southwestern city of Bordeaux on Friday, where excursions will include a visit to an organic vineyard. The king, a fluent French speaker like his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth, is keen to walk in her footsteps and is likely to refer to Elizabeth's deep affection for France, officials said, with the trip also being a chance to rebuild ties that have been frayed by Britain's chaotic exit from the European Union in 2020. Charles has hoped for a state visit to France to have been his first as king, but the March trip was postponed due to tense protests in France over pension reforms, much to Macron's embarrassment.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast for the world's major cities and Mongolia. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Goodbye.